Your paid-off home is writing you a check every single month, around $2,100, sometimes more, and the IRS has decided not to tax a penny of it. Most people have no idea this income exists. It never shows up on a bank statement. No financial advisor's software tracks it. But economists at the Bureau of Economic Analysis have been measuring it for decades. They call it imputed rent. I just call it the invisible paycheck. Here's how it works. If you didn't own your home free and clear, you'd be paying rent. For a single-family home in most parts of the country, that runs somewhere between $1,800 and $2,200 a month. Call it $24,000 a year. Your paid-off home hands you that money every single month as a bill that never arrives, tax-free, and rising with inflation because rents go up over time. Today, I'm going to show you exactly how that paycheck works, why it's worth far more than the mortgage payment it replaced, and how pairing it with just 3 ETFs creates a retirement income floor that most people spend their whole career trying to build and never do. And the part almost nobody connects? There's a feedback loop hiding inside this strategy that can push your federal tax rate on dividend income all the way down to 0. I'll break that loop wide open before this video is over. Quick note, I'm not a financial advisor or government employee. Everything here is for educational purposes only. For your specific situation, always check with a qualified professional. If you're somewhere between 55 and 65 right now, you've probably had this moment. You look at your savings, you look at your house, and you wonder, is it going to be enough? Here's what most people miss about that question. You might already have more than you think. A lot more. The $550,000 you might not need. Here's where the math starts to change everything. So let me walk you through this. Say you're 62. You and your spouse have saved $600,000. Your combined Social Security at full retirement age will be about $3,200 a month. That's roughly $38,400 a year coming in. Your real living expenses run about $60,000 a year. So you've got a gap, $21,600 every single year that has to come from somewhere. Now, using the 4% rule, the withdrawal rate that William Bengen proved could sustain a portfolio for 30 years through every bad market in history, covering a $21,600 gap requires a portfolio of about $540,000. That's nearly your entire savings just to fill the gap. On paper, you're going to be fine. But it's tight. There's no room to breathe. Now, watch what happens when the home is paid off. A comparable rental in your neighborhood runs about $2,000 a month. That's $24,000 a year. And that's your invisible paycheck, the rent bill that simply never arrives. That $24,000 doesn't just shrink your gap, it erases it. Your $21,600 shortfall is gone. You've just freed up $540,000 of portfolio that no longer needs to cover your housing. That money stays invested, it grows, and if a crash hits, you don't have to sell a single share to keep a roof over your head. And here's where I want you to guess a number before I show it to you. If a retiree still carrying a $2,000 mortgage has to pull money from a traditional IRA to make that payment, what do you think the real annual cost is? Not the mortgage payment, the real cost after taxes. It's not $24,000. At a 22% federal bracket, you need to withdraw about $2,564 every single month just to net $2,000 after taxes. That's almost $30,800 a year in gross withdrawals to cover a $24,000 mortgage. Nearly $7,000 a year gone just in tax drag on the withdrawals. But here's the part that stings. Those extra withdrawals can push your Social Security into the taxable zone. They can nudge you towards a Medicare surcharge cliff, and they pull you out of the bracket where your dividend ETFs would have been taxed at 0%, meaning the real cost of that mortgage isn't $24,000. It isn't even $31,000. Once you add the second-order tax damage, it can quietly run past $35,000 or $40,000 a year. That's not just a payment, that's a leak. And it's draining your portfolio from 3 directions at once. Only about 14% of private sector workers today have a traditional pension. That means 86% of the people watching this are going to retire on Social Security plus whatever pile of savings they managed to build. 2 buckets and a whole lot of hope. A paid-off home fills the gap that a pension would have filled, and it does it tax-free. The 3 ETFs that complete the floor. So now you know your home is carrying a massive share of the load. Here's the question. What do you do with the portfolio it just freed up? When housing is handled, when that $24,000 a year is off the table, you don't need to chase yield. You don't need a fund paying 8 or 10% that comes loaded with tax traps. You can pick ETFs based on what actually matters in retirement: dividend quality, tax efficiency, and whether the income grows faster than inflation. Here are the 3 that earned the spot. Fund 1, SCHD, Schwab U.S. Dividend Equity. This is your dividend growth core. It yields about 3.4%, charges just 0.06% in fees, and holds over 100 high-quality dividend-paying companies. But here's the number that matters most. SCHD has been growing its dividend roughly 10 to 11% a year for the past decade. On $200,000, that's about $6,800 in year 1. But at that growth rate, your annual income from SCHD alone could double within 7 or 8 years. And almost every dollar it pays is a qualified dividend, which makes it eligible for the 0% tax rate I'm about to show you. Fund 2, VOO, Vanguard S&P 500. This is your growth engine. It's not here to pay your bills, it's here to make sure your money lasts 30 years. VOO's total return over the past decade has averaged about 15% a year. And in a taxable account, VOO almost never distributes capital gains. That makes it one of the most tax-efficient equity funds you can own. Your paid-off home means you don't need income from this sleeve. You need it to grow. Fund 3, BND, Vanguard Total Bond Market. This is your stabilizer. Not exciting, not supposed to be. Wade Powell's research found that the returns in your first 10 years of retirement explain 77% of whether your money lasts. A crash combined with forced selling, that's what kills portfolios. Your paid-off home already cut your forced selling dramatically. BND finishes the job. It gives you a cushion to draw from while your equity funds recover. That's what keeps you from becoming a forced seller on the worst possible day. Now, you might be wondering about JEPI. It pays around 8%, sounds like it solves everything, but roughly 80 to 85% of JEPI's income comes from equity-linked notes that the IRS taxes as ordinary income, rates up to 37%. In a taxable account, that 8% headline yield can drop to about 5.5% after taxes, and it fires every tax trap we're about to cover. JEPI can work inside a Roth IRA where the income becomes completely tax-free, but in a taxable account, it does the exact opposite of what we're building here. Quick question before we move on. Is your home paid off, or are you still working toward it? And if it's paid off, where are you holding your ETFs right now? Taxable, IRA, or Roth? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. The feedback loop nobody talks about. This is the part that changes how you see the whole strategy, and it's the piece almost nobody connects. When your home is paid off, you need less income. When you need less income, you pull less from your retirement accounts. When you pull less, your taxable income drops. And when your taxable income drops, 4 things happen at once. First, your qualified dividends get taxed at 0. In 2026, a married couple can earn up to $98,900 in taxable income and pay exactly 0% federal tax on qualified dividends and long-term capital gains. That's the SCHD income and VOO growth landing in your pocket without giving back a cent. A paid-off home is what makes staying under that ceiling realistic. Here's the myth. You need a complicated tax strategy to pay 0 on dividend income. Here's the truth. You need a paid-off home and qualified dividend ETFs. That is the strategy. Second, more of your Social Security stays tax-free. The thresholds that make Social Security taxable haven't changed since 1993. For a married couple, once your combined income crosses $44,000, up to 85% of your benefit gets taxed. And in that phase-in zone, each extra dollar of income can face an effective rate above 40%. That's not a typo. The 22% bracket can quietly become 40.7%. Lower withdrawals, which a paid-off home lets you get away with, keep you below that trigger. Third, you dodge the Medicare surcharge cliffs. Standard Part B in 2026 runs about $203 a month, but cross $218,000 as a couple, your premiums jump by over $2,300 per person per year. That's $4,600 gone, just like that. And IRMA uses a 2-year look-back. Your 2024 income sets your 2026 premiums. Lower income today saves you real money 2 years from now.
Fourth, and this is the move smart retirees make, lower income opens a Roth conversion window. Those quiet years between retirement and age 73 when required minimum distributions start are often the lowest income stretch of your adult life. A paid-off home keeps your income low enough to convert pieces of your traditional IRA into a Roth at 10 or 12% instead of the 22 to 24% you'd pay later. Every dollar you convert now never faces RMDs, never fires the Social Security torpedo, and never pushes you toward an IRMMA cliff, ever. Now, here's the insight that ties all of this together. These 4 effects don't just add up, they multiply, because a mortgage payment in retirement isn't just the payment. It's the payment plus the tax on the withdrawal to cover it, plus the Social Security it makes taxable, plus the dividends it pushes out of the 0% bracket, plus the IRMMA tier it nudges you toward. Eliminate the mortgage, and every single one of those layers disappears at the same time. That's why the real value of a paid-off home isn't $24,000 a year. It's $24,000 plus all the tax damage that $24,000 of forced withdrawals would have caused. If someone you care about is approaching retirement and still debating whether to pay off the house, send them this video right now. That one decision ripples through every other number in their retirement. 3 landmines to handle first. Before you celebrate, 3 things can turn a paid-off home from a strength into a trap, and they catch good, careful people every year. Landmine 1. Property taxes never retire when you do. Your mortgage goes away, your tax bill stays, and it tends to go up. In states like New Jersey, average property taxes run above $10,000 a year. But here's what millions of people who qualify never find out. Most states have senior exemptions, assessment freezes, or deferral programs designed specifically to protect older homeowners. Your county will almost never call to tell you these exist. This week, look up senior property tax exemption for your state. One phone call could save you thousands a year. Landmine 2. Don't blow up your tax bracket to pay off the house. If you pull $200,000 from a traditional IRA in a single year to knock out the mortgage, that entire amount counts as ordinary income. You could jump from the 22% to the 32% bracket, make 85% of your Social Security taxable, trigger a Medicare surcharge 2 years later, and lose the 0% dividend rate, all in one move. The smart way? Spread it over multiple tax years. Use taxable savings when you can, and never, ever drain the emergency fund to do it. Don't turn a debt-free milestone into a $50,000 tax disaster. Landmine 3. The widow's penalty. This one is aimed squarely at married couples. When you sell a home, the IRS lets a married couple exclude $500,000 of gain tax-free. A single filer gets $250,000. When a spouse passes, the surviving spouse has roughly 2 years to sell the home and still claim that full $500,000 exclusion. Miss that window, and it drops in half. On a home that's appreciated $400,000 over 30 years, that difference can mean an unexpected tax bill of more than $20,000 landing on a person who just lost their partner. If you're married, have this conversation now, not later, not after. Here's what I want you to take away from everything we covered today. A retirement floor isn't built from the highest return. It's built from the lowest need. A paid-off home eliminates your biggest expense and pays you a tax-free, inflation-adjusted paycheck every month. 3 well-chosen ETFs, SCHD for growing dividends, VOO for long-term growth, and BND for crash protection, cover the remaining gap with income the IRS may never touch, and the feedback loop between them pushes your taxes lower, protects more of your Social Security, and opens the Roth window that locks the whole thing in. Your one move this week: find your floor. Add up your guaranteed income, add the invisible paycheck, compare it to your real essential expenses, and if the floor is covered, your retirement looks very different than you thought. If this changed how you see your home or your portfolio, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Are you in the pay it off first camp or the keep the mortgage and invest camp? And after this video, did your answer change? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. If you're building retirement income and want to stay ahead of the tax traps and moves most people miss, subscribe to Dividend Hustle. I break this down every single week.